Beneath a quiet Chinese village lies an engineering secret that should not exist. The Longyou Caves are a complex of colossal, hand-carved chambers so vast and precise they defy everything we know about ancient tools. By the end of this exploration, you will understand the 13 core mysteries that make this site one of history's greatest puzzles. We will confront walls covered in machine-like grooves and confront the eerie silence of a project with no records and no debris. What does it mean when the physical evidence outstrips our historical narrative? How do we explain a technology that appears, creates a masterpiece, and then vanishes without a trace? The answers hidden in this stone could force us to rethink the entire timeline of human innovation. What forgotten chapter of our own story is waiting to be acknowledged? The year was 1992 in a rural corner of Zhejiang province, a place defined by quiet rice fields and simple village life. For generations, the locals knew of a cluster of deep ponds in the area, water-filled depressions they believed were natural features, perhaps even bottomless according to local lore. They were simply part of the landscape until a practical decision changed everything. A group of villagers, led by a man named Wu Anai, pooled their resources to rent a water pump. Their goal was straightforward: to drain one of the larger ponds and perhaps farm the land or find fish. It was an act of rural economics, not archaeology. But as the pump hummed for day after day, something impossible began to emerge. The water level dropped, not to reveal a muddy pond bottom, but to expose sheer, smooth walls of rock descending at perfect angles. This was no natural pool. They had uncovered the flooded entrance to a vast, artificial cavern. The initial shock gave way to a determined curiosity. They moved the pump to a second pond, then a third and a fourth. Each time, the same breathtaking sight greeted them: massive, human-made chambers submerged for who knows how long. In total, 24 such caverns were eventually identified, though only a handful have been fully drained and explored. Imagine the moment that first villager stood at the newly revealed edge, peering into a darkness that had been sealed for centuries. The scale of what they had stumbled upon was utterly disorienting. Here was a monumental complex, a subterranean palace of stone, lying forgotten beneath their feet, their homes, their daily routines. It forces a haunting question: how many other wonders sleep just below the surface of our familiar world, concealed not by distance, but by our own assumptions? The Longyou Caves were no longer a local legend. They were a global enigma, and the real mystery was only beginning. The true magnitude of the discovery only became clear when researchers stepped inside. The first fully explored cavern, now called Cave 1, is not a simple hole in the ground. It is a grand hall of stone that swallows sound and dwarfs human presence. The numbers alone are difficult to grasp: an excavated space covering tens of thousands of square meters, with ceilings arching over 30 meters high, the height of a 10-story building. To stand on that floor is to feel a profound and deliberate smallness. This space was not haphazardly dug, it was architected. Massive pillars, each carved from the living bedrock itself, rise at regular intervals to support the unimaginable weight above. The walls are not rough, they are smooth planes that meet the ceiling and floor at crisp, consistent angles. The entire chamber exhibits a symmetry that is both beautiful and brutally functional. This is not decoration, it is structural engineering on a colossal scale. Every line and angle speaks of a blueprint held firmly in mind, a plan executed with a confidence that leaves no room for error. Consider the physical reality of creating such a space. The estimated volume of solid sandstone removed from this single cavern and its siblings is close to 1 million cubic meters. To visualize that, picture a line of standard dump trucks, each loaded with rock, stretching for hundreds of miles. This was not a task for a family or a small village working in their spare time. This scale implies an operation of staggering coordination, a mobilized workforce with a singular purpose, operating with the precision of a single mind. The first and most immediate mystery is not just how they did it, but why. What vision was so compelling, what purpose so urgent that it justified moving a small mountain of stone to create this profound and hidden emptiness? The confidence etched into every surface suggests the builders knew exactly what they were doing, which makes their total disappearance from history all the more unsettling. Yet the sheer scale of the chambers is only the prelude to a deeper mystery. The true astonishment lies in the walls themselves. Every single surface, from the soaring ceilings to the immense pillars and the smooth floors, is covered in a singular, relentless pattern. It is not the random, jagged scarring left by hammer and chisel. Instead, the stone is etched with thousands upon thousands of parallel grooves, each one carved at an identical 60-degree angle. These lines run in continuous, unbroken bands across areas the size of basketball courts, maintaining a perfect, rhythmic consistency. To stand before them is to feel a sense of profound order, a visual rhythm so precise it feels industrial. The hand of an individual artisan is invisible here, replaced by the signature of a process, a method that applied the same immense force, the same exact angle, over and over and over again. This is not the texture of labor, it is the texture of a machine. The uniformity is so complete that researchers have struggled to replicate it even with modern power tools, as achieving such a consistent pattern across a soft sandstone surface without fracturing the stone requires a control that seems almost supernatural for its time. Known ancient Chinese masonry, while sophisticated, shows the distinctive marks of hand tools, variations in depth and spacing that speak to human rhythm. The Longyou grooves speak of something else entirely, a relentless, impersonal repetition. This is the core evidence that ignites the theory of mechanical excavation. The pattern is a fossilized imprint of the tool itself, or more precisely, of a massive cutting head that was dragged across the rock face in a systematic sweep. It suggests a device, perhaps a kind of ancient boring machine or a rotating drum studded with cutting teeth, that could be guided across a surface to strip away layer after layer of stone with inhuman consistency. The concept is staggering. If such a machine existed, it represents a leap in engineering that has no parallel in the accepted archaeological record of that region or era. And this leads to the haunting secondary question that shadows the first. If this technology was real and its capabilities so profound, where did it go? A machine capable of carving a mountain from the inside out is not a small invention that gets misplaced. Its creation would imply a supporting industry, a knowledge of metallurgy for the cutting teeth, an understanding of mechanics and power transmission. Yet there is no trace of it, no fragments of the device, no depictions in art, no whisper in legend. It appears in the silent stone of Longyou and then vanishes from history as completely as the people who operated it. The walls, therefore, hold a dual message. They show us a capability that seems to defy our timeline, and in the same breath, they document its total and utter disappearance. What does it mean when the only evidence of a world-changing technology is the empty space it left behind? The silence that surrounds the Longyou Caves is not merely an absence of sound, but an absence of evidence. This leads us directly to the third, and perhaps most confounding, layer of the mystery. Where is all the rubble? A project that removed nearly 1 million cubic meters of solid sandstone would have generated a mountain of debris, a spoil heap visible for miles. Yet no such pile exists in the vicinity. Not a single trace of the excavated material has been found. This is not a minor logistical footnote. It is a physical impossibility that defies common sense. Think of any major construction site, ancient or modern. The removed earth and stone must go somewhere. For the pyramids, we see the quarries. For medieval cathedrals, we find the stone yards. At Longyou, the mountain of stone simply vanished. The most logical explanation is also the most staggering. The material was not waste, it was a resource. The sandstone was systematically quarried, removed, and almost certainly used for another, equally massive purpose. Perhaps it built a city or fortified walls, or an above-ground complex that has since been lost to time. The organization required for such an efficient operation, moving and utilizing every single chunk of removed rock, speaks of a project integrated into a much larger societal plan. This was not just digging a hole, it was a sophisticated mining and construction operation executed with zero waste, but the silence grows even deeper. China possesses one of the world's most continuous and meticulous traditions of historical record-keeping. Dynastic annals, local county gazetteers, and imperial logs documented everything from tax revenues to public works projects. A construction feat of this scale, requiring thousands of workers and decades of labor, would have been a matter of state significance. It would have been recorded. And yet, across all these vast archives, there is not a single character, not one line of poetry, not one administrative note that mentions the carving of the Longyou Caves. For historians, this silence is deafening. It is a void in the written record as vast as the caverns themselves. How does an entire civilization forget its own greatest engineering project? Several unsettling possibilities emerge. The first is secrecy. Perhaps the work was a state secret of the highest order, its purpose so sensitive that all knowledge of its construction was deliberately erased from official memory. The second is antiquity. Maybe the caves are far older than we think, built in a time before written records existed in that region, by a culture whose name and language are completely lost to us. Their story was never written down to begin with. A third, more speculative idea is that the work was not perceived as a construction project by those who came later. Without understanding the technology used, a later civilization discovering the empty caves might have assumed they were natural formations, or perhaps the work of spirits, and thus never thought to record their creation. This dual absence of both physical debris and historical memory weaves a shroud around the caves far thicker than any darkness. It tells us that the mystery is not just about how the work was done, but about the intent behind erasing all traces of the work itself. What kind of project is so important that you build a monumental underground space, and so secret that you must make the very act of building disappear? The empty landscape above and the blank pages of history point toward a truth that is deliberately hidden, a chapter of the past that was not just lost but perhaps carefully sealed away. The rock itself holds a vital clue to the builder's impossible skill. The caves are carved into a deep layer of Cretaceous sandstone, a material with a deceptive and demanding personality. Freshly exposed, this stone is relatively soft, almost workable. This initial softness is what made the grand, sweeping carvings possible, allowing tools to cut clean lines and smooth planes. But this cooperative state is fleeting. Upon contact with air, the sandstone undergoes a rapid transformation, hardening into a much more resilient form. This creates a punishing deadline for any artisan. The ancient workers were not simply carving stone, they were racing against the very material they were shaping. They had to execute their monumental design with flawless precision within a narrow window before their canvas solidified against them. This geological fact shatters any notion of a natural explanation. Water erosion, the usual sculptor of underground spaces, creates rounded, organic forms, smooth hollows, and winding tunnels. What we see at Longyou is the absolute opposite: sharp, consistent angles and flat walls meeting at perfect 90-degree joints. This is the signature of intelligent, forceful intervention. The builders did not just find a convenient place to dig, they demonstrated a profound understanding of their medium. They selected this specific stratum of sandstone precisely because its properties allowed for their vision, and then they mastered the frantic timeline it imposed. Every smooth wall, every crisp corner is a testament to that mastery. It means their plan was not only grand in scale, but exquisitely timed, a symphony of labor conducted in harmony with the hardening breath of the stone. To work with such confidence under such a constraint speaks of a knowledge passed down through generations, or perhaps of a technology so advanced it rendered the stone's defiance irrelevant. This profound emptiness is itself a form of evidence. Stepping into the vast, silent halls of Longyou, one is struck not by what is there, but by what is not. No fragments of pottery, no discarded tools, no soot from torches on the ceilings, no carvings on the walls beyond the construction grooves. There are no burial niches, no altars, no storage bins, no signs that anyone ever lived or worked in these spaces after they were carved. This pristine vacancy is the fourth great mystery. What were these colossal rooms for? A space this grand, requiring such unimaginable effort, must have served a purpose of equal grandeur. Yet the caves give us nothing but the space itself. The theories that have emerged try to fill this silence with logic, but each one encounters a stubborn contradiction. The idea of a secret imperial quarry is compelling, given the missing rubble. Perhaps the state was mining this specific, high-quality sandstone for a monumental above-ground project. But if that were the sole purpose, why engineer such beautiful, symmetrical halls with supporting pillars? A quarry operation would dig efficiently, not artistically. They would not care about acoustic resonance or the precise angles of the ceiling. The architectural care argues against a purely utilitarian mine. Another theory points to water. Could these have been massive, regulated reservoirs for irrigation or a city's water supply? The engineering would certainly allow it, and the location near the river is sensible. Yet again, the design feels excessive for a simple tank. The effort seems disproportionate to the need. Then we have the possibility of a ceremonial or ritual space. The acoustic properties are notable, with certain frequencies of sound lingering in the air, creating a haunting, reverberant atmosphere. The placement of the pillars is not random. They are positioned in a way that creates a deliberate procession through the space. This feels intentional, a design meant to inspire awe and focus attention. Could this have been a sacred site, an underground temple for a forgotten belief system? It is a powerful idea, yet such spaces globally are almost always adorned with symbols, statues, or inscriptions. Longyou's walls are eerily, stubbornly blank. A final thought is that of a storage facility, perhaps for grain or imperial treasures, a secure, temperature-stable vault for a kingdom. But the scale is, once more, bafflingly vast. The emptiness pushes us toward a purpose that was temporary, or a function that required the space to be kept perfectly clear. Perhaps the caves were not the end product, but the means to an end. The act of removal itself was the goal, providing stone for a project so important it justified creating a hidden, empty monument beneath the earth. The purpose and the construction method are locked together. If we could understand the why, the how might suddenly make sense. Were they building a hidden fortress, a strategic refuge, a king's tomb waiting for an occupant that never arrived? The halls do not whisper their secret. They simply stand, vast and silent, their only function now to echo our unanswered questions back to us. The silence of the caves extends even to the passage of time. Without a single artifact or inscription to anchor them, the Longyou Caves exist in a chronological void, a puzzle missing its most fundamental piece, the date of its creation. How do you age a work of stone when the stone itself is the only witness? traditional archaeological methods hit an immediate wall. Carbon dating, which relies on analyzing the decay of organic materials, is completely useless here. The caves are hauntingly clean, devoid of charcoal from ancient torches, wooden tool fragments, or even pollen grains trapped in the sediment. The builders left no biological calling card behind. This forces researchers into the realm of geological detective work, studying the slow, patient processes that have acted on the caves since their carving. Experts have examined the subtle weathering on the walls, the thin layers of mineral deposits known as calcite that have seeped out of the stone over centuries. Based on the rate of these natural processes, estimates have been proposed, placing the construction somewhere between 1,200 and over 2,000 years ago. This broad window would potentially align the work with the mighty Qin or Han dynasties, eras of immense centralized power capable of marshalling vast labor forces for grand projects like the Great Wall. The timeline seems to fit, at least in terms of societal capacity, yet the stone tells a more ambiguous story. A separate line of investigation focuses on the tool marks themselves. Those precise, parallel grooves have not been static since the day they were cut. They have been subjected to the incredibly slow erosion of humidity and microscopic particles in the air. By analyzing the degree to which these sharp edges have softened, some researchers have suggested the marks are far older, potentially pushing the date back well beyond the dynastic period into a pre-historical era. This creates a profound historical gray zone. If the caves are 2 millennia old, they are a staggering outlier in the technological record of that time. If they are significantly older, they become something else entirely, a relic of a forgotten epoch of human achievement. This chronological ambiguity is not just an academic debate, it severs the caves from any known cultural context. We cannot link them to a specific emperor's decree, a known school of engineering, or a recorded migration of people. They float in history disconnected. This very uncertainty, however, becomes a kind of evidence. It forces open a door to possibilities that orthodox history often keeps closed. Could these halls be the work of a sophisticated culture that flourished and faded long before written records began in this region? A culture whose tools and techniques were so advanced that when they vanished, the knowledge vanished with them, leaving only these silent, cavernous echoes as proof they were ever here at all. The difficulty in dating the caves may be the most important clue of all, hinting that our established timeline of human progress is not a straight line, but a story with missing chapters, and some of those chapters are written in stone, waiting beneath our feet. But the builders' foresight extended far beyond the empty halls themselves. The fifth great mystery of Longyou is etched not into the walls but into the floors. Each cavern is equipped with its own sophisticated internal drainage system, a network of carefully carved channels and sloped surfaces that funnel water toward a central collection pit. This is not a later addition or a happy accident of erosion. It is an integral part of the original design, carved with the same precise intent as everything else. The builders knew they were working below the water table. They understood that groundwater would inevitably seep into their creation, and so they engineered a solution in advance. They gave the water a deliberate path to follow, ensuring their colossal chambers would not simply flood and become useless. The gradients of these channels are precise, calculated to move water efficiently without eroding the soft sandstone. This reveals a startlingly advanced understanding of hydrology, of water behavior, and of long-term structural preservation. Think of it like the gutters on a modern building, but carved from a single, massive piece of the earth. It transforms the caves from a simple, excavated space into a managed environment, a piece of infrastructure designed for permanence. This level of planning is consistent with only one type of project, a large-scale, permanent construction intended for sustained use. A temporary quarry or a haphazard dig would never invest such meticulous effort into water management. The drainage system, combined with the weight-bearing pillars, paints a complete picture of subterranean architecture. The builders weren't just digging a hole, they were designing a durable, functional space meant to last for centuries, if not millennia. They thought like architects and civil engineers, solving problems before the first drop of water ever appeared. This systematic approach forces us to ask, what were they protecting? What activity or stored treasure was so valuable that it required not just a hidden room, but a climate-controlled, dry vault carved from the heart of a mountain? The silent floors with their purposeful slopes whisper of a practicality that makes the ultimate purpose feel even more urgent and even more lost to us. The parallel grooves are a language written in stone, and its grammar is one of absolute uniformity. To understand their message, we must move beyond simple observation and into the realm of forensic engineering. The consistency is the key. Each mark maintains an identical 60-degree angle and a near-perfect spacing from its neighbor, a rhythm unbroken across surfaces larger than houses. This level of precision eliminates the possibility of individual artisans working with handheld chisels. The human hand, no matter how skilled, introduces micro-variations, a slight wobble, a change in force, a moment of fatigue. These walls show none of that. They show the cold, repeating signature of a guided process. To test this, researchers have built physical models, attempting to recreate the marks using theories of ancient machinery. One compelling concept involves a massive, pendulum-like frame. Imagine a heavy wooden beam pivoted from the cavern ceiling, with multiple hardened stone or metal cutting heads fixed along its bottom edge. Workers would pull this apparatus back and forth like a giant saw, its weight and fixed geometry ensuring every cut was made at the same depth and angle. Another model proposes a rotational drum, a cylinder studded with cutting teeth that could be rolled or dragged across the rock face, its circular motion naturally creating that distinctive parallel scoring. Both ideas share a core principle. They remove the individual strike and replace it with a system. The tool becomes a machine, and the worker becomes its operator, guiding a predetermined force along a controlled path. The unvarying pattern is the direct result of this mechanization. It is the fossilized imprint of the tool's prescribed motion, a snapshot of an industrial process frozen in time. This shifts the entire investigation. The debate is no longer about whether a machine was used. The stone has answered that with a resounding yes. The real puzzle now is reconstructing the machine's blueprint from the shadows it left behind. These grooves are not just decoration or accidental scarring. They are a technical manual in a language we have forgotten how to read. Every line is a sentence describing torque, weight, and trajectory. Every smooth plane is a paragraph explaining material science and structural physics. To stand before them is to stand before the ghost of a machine. Its form vanished, but its function permanently recorded in the very medium it was designed to destroy. What does it say about a civilization that it could conceive of such a device? And what greater truth does it hide that they felt the need to bury its masterpiece and its method under a quiet Chinese hillside? The precision of the builders reveals itself in another, more subtle dimension, one that points not just to the earth but to the sky. The sixth mystery of Longyou lies in its potential alignment with the heavens. While not as overtly astronomical as the towering stones of ancient observatories, a careful study of the complex suggests something more than random placement. Researchers have noted that the orientation of certain cave entrances and the specific positioning of the massive internal pillars may correspond to key celestial events. These alignments could mark the sunrise on a solstice, or pinpoint the position of a significant star or constellation, as it would have appeared in the night sky centuries ago. If this was intentional, it transforms our understanding of the site entirely. the project would no longer be solely an industrial feat or a utilitarian storage facility. It would become a cosmological instrument, a deliberate bridge carved between the deep underground and the vast cosmos above. This idea finds powerful echoes at ancient sites across the globe, from the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Angkor Wat, where architecture was designed to mirror the heavens and capture celestial rhythms. The builders of these places saw no separation between the sacred and the scientific, between engineering and astronomy. Their world was a unified whole, and their greatest structures served as interfaces, grounding celestial power into the earth. At Longyou, the potential for such alignments introduces a profound spiritual or ceremonial layer to the overwhelming physical effort. It suggests the caves were not just a space to be used, but a space to be experienced in a specific way, at a specific time, under a specific sky. The play of light through an entrance on a single day of the year, or the echo of a chant between pillars aligned with a star, could have held immense ritual significance. Investigating these celestial clues is like trying to hear a faint, ancient melody. The evidence is subtle, woven into the angles and the silence, requiring us to look at the caves not just as a carved interior, but as a component of a larger, living landscape that included the horizon and the stars. If the alignments are real, they offer our first fragile connection to the builder's worldview. They hint at a culture that measured its place in the universe with stone and shadow, and chose to inscribe that understanding not on parchment, but in the enduring heart of a mountain. This possibility elevates the mystery from a question of how they built to a question of what they believed and what they were trying to communicate across the ages to the empty, waiting halls. The global landscape of ancient wonders offers a revealing mirror for Longyou. We are accustomed to marveling at additive architecture, the breathtaking act of assembly. The Egyptian pyramids are a symphony of millions of cut stones, lifted and stacked into a geometric mountain. Machu Picchu is a puzzle of granite blocks, each one shaped to fit its neighbor without mortar. These are achievements of logistics and masonry, of moving and joining. Longyou represents the opposite principle. This is subtractive architecture, a masterpiece defined not by what was brought together, but by what was taken away. The builders did not assemble a structure, they revealed one from within the earth itself. This fundamental difference shifts the entire paradigm of the mystery. The core challenge at Longyou was not transport or fitting, but the controlled, systematic removal of a mountain's heart while leaving a perfectly engineered shell behind. For a true comparison, we must look to other sites where the earth was the raw material. The magnificent rock-hewn churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia, carved downward from volcanic tuff, share this subtractive spirit. So too do the vast underground cities of Cappadocia in Turkey, where communities carved entire multi-level habitats from soft rock formations. These sites show that the concept of carving living stone was known across the ancient world. Yet, even among these cousins, Longyou stands apart. The churches of Lalibela are ornate, covered in symbolic carvings and architectural details that clearly identify their purpose. The Cappadocian cities are functional dwellings with rooms, stairs, and ventilation shafts suited for daily life. Longyou possesses neither the religious iconography nor the domestic traces. Its halls are stark, immense, and eerily vacant. More critically, the tool marks themselves tell a divergent story. The surfaces in Lalibela and Cappadocia show the varied, recognizable scars of hand tools, the chisel and the pickaxe. The walls of Longyou bear that uniform, machined signature, a pattern of such relentless consistency it has no parallel in any other known ancient excavation. This places Longyou in a category of its own. It suggests that while the idea of carving from rock was a global human innovation, the specific technology employed in Zhejiang province may have been a singular, localized leap. It represents a different branch on the tree of ancient engineering prowess, one focused not on the physics of weight and balance, but on the mechanics of excavation and the mastery of a tool that could strip stone with the efficiency of a modern planer. By seeing Longyou in this global light, its true anomaly comes into sharp focus. The mystery is not simply that ancient people could carve big spaces. It is that they carved this particular space with a method that appears technologically disconnected from every other example we have. It is as if, in the long story of human construction, one page contains a diagram for a machine, while all the other pages only describe the hammer and the chisel. Such a project could not have been born from a spontaneous gathering of villagers. The seventh mystery of Longyou is not etched in stone, but implied by its very existence, the staggering social organization required to make it a reality. Whether the work was done by 1,000 hands or guided by advanced machinery, the coordination needed is almost beyond comprehension. This was an operation that would have demanded a strict hierarchy of minds and muscles. First, the architects and master planners, individuals who could visualize these vast, interlocking spaces in 3 dimensions and calculate the structural stresses on the ceiling. Then the foremen and engineers on site, translating that vision into daily instructions, managing the sequencing of excavation to prevent collapse. Behind them, the legions of laborers, but also the specialized toolmakers maintaining an entire arsenal of cutting implements, the cooks feeding a small city of workers, the quartermasters securing supplies of rope, wood, and perhaps metal, and the logisticians organizing the removal and transport of that mountain of rubble. This points to a society with a deep bench of skilled professions, a complex economy capable of supporting a non-agricultural workforce for an incredibly long time. We are likely looking at a project that spanned decades, perhaps even multiple generations. A father might have started carving a wall his son would finish. This long-term commitment requires something even more powerful than skill. It requires unshakable authority. What kind of leadership could command such sustained effort for a result that was, by its very nature, hidden from view? It speaks of a political or religious power so absolute that the populace accepted this monumental, invisible task as a necessary duty, a collective endeavor for a purpose greater than any individual. The social footprint of this undertaking should have been enormous, leaving behind settlements, workshops, roads, and grave sites that archaeologists could find. Yet, beyond the caves themselves, the regional archaeology of that period shows no obvious corresponding evidence of such a massive, concentrated population. This absence is deafening. It suggests one of 2 unsettling possibilities. Either this society was so transient, so purpose-built for this single project that it packed up and vanished without leaving the usual traces, like a specialized construction crew that dissolves after the job is done. Or their civilization was far more extensive and sophisticated than we currently understand, and its central heart, its capital or primary cultural sites, remain completely undiscovered, buried under modern cities or lost to floods and forests. The caves, then, might be just a peripheral outpost, a single chapter in a much larger book we have not yet found. The silence around Longyou thus expands from a technical puzzle into a historical one. We are not just searching for a lost tool, but for a lost people, a society with the will, the means, and the discipline to alter the earth itself, and then seemingly erase themselves from its surface. What shared belief or urgent necessity could possibly justify such a profound and secret investment of an entire civilization's energy? The element that finally revealed the caves may have been their primary tool from the very beginning. Water is the silent, persistent character in this story, first as a guardian and later, perhaps, as the builder's most powerful ally. We know the villagers found the caves submerged, and we have seen the brilliant drainage channels carved to manage seepage. But a compelling theory pushes this relationship further, suggesting water was not just a problem to solve, but the very solution that made the impossible task possible. This is the concept of hydraulic mining. Imagine the builders not with chisels, but with a sophisticated network of bamboo pipes and reservoirs, channeling water from the nearby river to create powerful, focused jets. Directed against the relatively soft sandstone, such a pressurized stream could act like a liquid laser, fracturing the rock and washing away the debris in a slurry. This method would explain several stubborn mysteries at once. The eerily clean walls, free of hammer marks, could be the result of hydraulic erosion. The missing mountain of rubble becomes far less puzzling, as the pulverized stone could have been efficiently flushed out through purpose-built sluiceways, perhaps even transported by water to its ultimate destination. Most intriguingly, the sump pits and channels we assumed were for later drainage might have been integral to the construction phase itself, serving as settling ponds and runoff conduits for the mining operation. While direct archaeological evidence for such a system has not been found, the idea is far from fanciful. Ancient Chinese engineers were masters of hydraulic technology, building complex irrigation networks, water-powered trip hammers for forging, and precision canal locks centuries before similar feats appeared in the West. The knowledge and the capability were undeniably present. If water was the tool, it recontextualizes the entire endeavor. The site selection near a water source becomes a critical engineering decision, not just a geographical coincidence. The project transforms from a brutal exercise in brute force into a sophisticated exercise in fluid dynamics, a testament to the builders' deep understanding of their environment's natural forces. Water, the element that hid the caves for centuries, might have been the whispering secret behind their creation, a natural power harnessed to sculpt a mountain from within, leaving behind only the ghost of its flow in the silent, dry halls we walk through today. But the pillars of Longyou hold a story beyond their strength. Their shape is a deliberate echo, a whisper from the world above ground. Each one is a smooth, elegantly tapered column, rising from floor to ceiling not as a rough-hewn post, but as a refined architectural element. They do not look like mine supports. They look like the grand pillars that hold up the roofs of imperial halls and ancient temples, the kind you would see in a forbidden city courtyard. Only here they are carved from the living earth itself. This resemblance is no accident. It is a profound architectural choice, a symbolic gesture frozen in stone. The builders did not just want a stable ceiling, they wanted a specific aesthetic, a familiar form transported into the underworld. This intention is mirrored in the very shape of the caverns. The ceilings are not flat, they are gently sloped, forming a peaked roof that perfectly mimics the traditional silhouette of Chinese architecture. Step back and the entire chamber transforms in your mind's eye. It is no longer a cave, it is a grand hall, a ceremonial space, a subterranean replica of a palace complex. This changes everything. The purpose shifts from the purely utilitarian to the deeply symbolic. The caves become an anti-palace, a formal, powerful space intentionally inverted into the earth. In many ancient cultures, the world below was seen as a realm of ancestors, of foundational energies, of immense spiritual power. To build a palace down there was not to hide it, but to consecrate it, to ground it in the most profound layer of reality. The act of replication was itself a ritual. It was a way of claiming that sacred architectural language for a different kind of authority, one connected to the roots of the world rather than the summit of society. This symbolism carries a weight that simple storage or quarrying never could. It suggests the space was meant for gatherings of significance, for rites that required the awe-inspiring atmosphere of a palace, but demanded the seclusion and sanctity of the deep earth. The pillars, then, are not just holding up rock, they are holding up an idea. They are the physical anchors for a cultural concept, the belief that the most important spaces could be, and perhaps should be, mirrored below. The silent halls of Longyou, in their perfect mimicry of the world above, ask us a haunting question. What ceremony was so vital, what gathering so secret, that it required a palace built in reverse, a place where the earth itself became the walls of power? The silent stone of Longyou has met its match in the hum of modern machines. In recent decades, the mystery has entered a new phase, one defined not by speculation, but by precise digital measurement. Teams of scientists and archaeologists have turned advanced technology on the ancient halls, employing tools the original builders could never have conceived. Laser scanners sweep every surface, capturing millions of data points to create flawless three-dimensional models. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses through the surrounding earth, listening for echoes that might reveal hidden voids. These are not tools of excavation, but tools of revelation designed to see what the naked eye cannot. The results have been both confirming and electrifying. The digital models have quantified what the heart already sensed. The angles are perfect. The walls are planes of such geometric precision that they align with a tolerance of less than a single degree across distances of dozens of meters. This data definitively silences any lingering notion of natural formation or haphazard work. The caves are a monument to intentional, controlled engineering. But the technology has done more than just confirm old suspicions. It has whispered of new secrets. Those radar pulses have returned anomalous readings, subtle suggestions of hollow spaces behind known walls, or tunnels extending beyond the currently mapped chambers. The map, it seems, is incomplete. There may be entire sections of the complex still sealed, untouched, and waiting in the dark. This possibility ignites a powerful hope. If a new chamber were discovered, it could be the one space the builders did not clean, a sealed room that escaped whatever grand clearing out occurred. Within it, we might finally find the broken tool, the discarded lamp, the fragment of a worker's meal, or the one thing that has been most achingly absent, an inscription. A single character carved into a hidden corner could connect this place to a known dynasty, a known language, a known people. It could be the key that unlocks the entire timeline. The modern technological toolkit represents our best chance to move from mystery to history. It is a fascinating full circle, a moment where our own most advanced machinery is deployed to decipher the clues left by what may have been an advanced machinery of the deep past. We are, in a sense, sending our robots to find their ghosts. The search is no longer just about understanding a space, but about finding the fingerprint within it. Every ping of the radar, every sweep of the laser, is a question aimed directly at the silence, and for the first time in centuries, the stone may finally be ready to answer. The known chambers of Longyou may only be the visible tip of a much larger, hidden world. This is the ninth mystery, a question of scale that pushes the boundaries of the already unbelievable. While 24 caves have been identified, only a small number have been fully drained and made accessible for study. The others remain as they were found, submerged and silent, their true forms concealed by dark water. This simple fact opens a door to a staggering possibility. Geological surveys of the area, combined with persistent local stories passed down for generations, strongly suggest that many more such caverns could lie undiscovered, their entrances sealed under the very rice fields and village homes that dot the landscape today. The implication is breathtaking. What we have been calling the Longyou Caves might not be a collection of individual sites, but a single, sprawling, interconnected network, a subterranean labyrinth carved with a unified purpose. Think of it not as a series of rooms, but as a district, perhaps even an entire underground city laid out beneath the earth. The known halls with their grand pillars and sloped ceilings would then be just the central plazas or main temples of this hidden metropolis. If this theory holds true, the scale of the endeavor explodes beyond our current calculations. The volume of removed stone would multiply exponentially. The logistics of planning, excavating, and coordinating such a vast, connected space become almost incomprehensible. It would shift our understanding of the project from a monumental undertaking by a powerful state to something that could define a civilization, an enterprise so central to a culture's identity that it shaped their entire society for generations. The purpose, too, would demand reevaluation. A single grand hall could be a ceremonial space or a secure vault, but an interconnected complex suggests sustained activity, movement between chambers, specialized areas for different functions, and a need for permanent occupation or repeated use on a scale we have not yet dared to consider. This possibility means the ultimate answers to Longyou's riddles, the who, the why, and the how, may not lie in the caves we can walk through. They may be waiting in the dark, water-filled chambers we have yet to reach, or in the sealed passages that connect them. The full truth of Longyou remains hidden, not by time or forgetfulness, but by the very medium that revealed its first secret, the deep, patient water that still guards the heart of the mystery. Skeptics offer a powerful counterpoint to the machine theory, one rooted in the undeniable strength of the human spirit. They remind us of history's other monumental labors, the pyramids of Giza laid stone by stone, the Great Wall winding across mountains, and the colossal statues of Easter Island moved by ingenuity and sheer will. Could the Longyou Caves not simply be another testament to that same relentless human effort? The argument is compelling. With a large enough workforce, driven by powerful religious or imperial command, and given not years but generations to complete the task, perhaps the caves are the ultimate example of what hands, chisels, and time can achieve. This perspective forces us to respect the profound capabilities of our ancestors, to avoid always reaching for a lost technology when collective human endeavor might suffice. Yet when we apply this logic directly to the evidence in the stone, it begins to fracture under the weight of the details. The first and most glaring challenge is the tool marks themselves. Hand carving, even by a master artisan, leaves a signature of variation. The angle of a chisel strike changes minutely with each swing. The depth varies with fatigue. The spacing between marks reflects a human rhythm. At Longyou, the grooves are a chorus of perfect unison. To achieve such uniformity by hand would require not just skilled workers, but thousands of workers who all held their tools at the exact same 60-degree angle, struck with the exact same force, and maintained that robotic precision across millions of strikes over decades. It asks for a level of standardized technique that feels less like a trained workforce and more like a factory of cloned artisans. Then we confront the staggering volume of removed material and the eerie absence of its debris. A hand-carving operation of this scale would generate an astronomical amount of waste rubble, chips, and dust. The logistics of removing that much material from deep underground, using only human and animal power, would be a project rivaling the excavation itself. Where are the vast spoil heaps? Where are the transport roads worn into the landscape? The efficiency implied by the clean site suggests a removal process that was integrated and swift, perhaps even simultaneous with the cutting, a characteristic that aligns more with a mechanical or hydraulic system than with teams hauling baskets up narrow tunnels. Finally, there is the sheer physical and organizational endurance required. To sustain an army of workers for the centuries this project would demand by hand, you would need a permanent, thriving support city on the surface, with farms, housing, and governance entirely dedicated to the underground endeavor. Archaeology has found no trace of such a sprawling, centuries-long settlement in the immediate area. The human labor theory, while honoring the potential of ancient people, ultimately requires a cascade of perfect and invisible conditions, an entire civilization's sustained effort that left behind only the carved void and none of the inevitable, messy evidence of its own existence. This does not mean it was impossible. but it does mean that the simplest explanation, a massive but conventional manual dig, creates as many profound mysteries as it solves. The silent, machined walls of Longyou stand as a challenge, not to our respect for ancient labor, but to our understanding of its limits. They keep the door open to a startling possibility, that the builders may have found a way to amplify that human will with a power we have yet to fully comprehend. The silence of the caves is not absolute, it is a canvas for sound. The 10th mystery of Longyou is not written on the walls but heard in the air itself. Visitors and researchers stepping into the grand halls often speak of the same uncanny experience. A whisper carries, a footstep echoes, and a spoken word seems to hang in the space with a lingering, resonant clarity. This is not the chaotic reverberation of a random cavern. The sound behaves in a specific, controlled way, suggesting the shapes around you were carved with an ear as well as an eye. The sloped ceilings, the placement of the massive pillars, the precise angles where walls meet, all of these architectural choices act like the interior of a vast stone instrument. They shape the sound waves, amplifying certain frequencies and allowing them to travel with purpose. This points toward a deliberate form of acoustic engineering, a sophisticated understanding of how space manipulates sound. In the ancient world, acoustics were not merely a happy accident, they were a sacred technology. From the chanting galleries of medieval cathedrals to the whispering galleries of certain ancient temples, cultures used architectural acoustics to create profound sensory experiences, to make the human voice or a ritual instrument feel imbued with supernatural power. At Longyou, this auditory dimension transforms our understanding of the space's potential use. Imagine standing in that immense darkness, not in silence, but surrounded by the deep, resonant hum of ritual chanting, a sound that seems to emanate from the stone itself. Or consider the possibility of musical performance, where the notes from a simple flute or a set of stone chimes would be amplified into a haunting symphony that filled the entire subterranean hall. It could have been a space for oratory where a single speaker's voice, without shouting, could reach hundreds of people gathered in the gloom, each word given weight and presence by the very architecture. This sensory layer implies the caves were designed for more than storage or secrecy. They were crafted to be experienced, to generate a specific emotional and psychological state in those who entered. The design was meant to overwhelm not just the eyes with scale, but the ears with sound, to create a total immersion that could facilitate ceremony, meditation, or communal gathering. The emptiness we see today might be misleading. In their prime, these halls could have been alive with vibration and song, a hidden sanctuary where sound was the medium for connection, whether to each other, to the earth, or to something beyond. The enduring echo is a ghost of that intention, a faint reminder that the greatest purpose of this place may have been not in what was left behind, but in what was once heard and felt within it. Theories are only as strong as the evidence that supports them, and at Longyou the evidence is carved in stone. To move beyond speculation, modern researchers have turned to a powerful form of historical detective work, experimental archaeology. This is not about digging up artifacts, but about recreating the processes that might have made them. Teams of skilled stonemasons and engineers have stood before fresh sandstone faces, armed with tools they believe mirror those of antiquity, and attempted to answer the question with their own hands and sweat. Could they replicate the signature of the caves? The results are humbling and revealing. Using replicated bronze chisels and stone hammers, artisans have tried to carve those perfect, parallel 60-degree grooves. The process is agonizingly slow, maintaining the unvarying angle and spacing across even a small section requires a superhuman level of concentration and muscle control. The natural variation of the human arm, the slight changes in strike force, the inevitable fatigue, All of these factors introduce tiny inconsistencies that accumulate into a pattern clearly different from the machined uniformity on the ancient walls. The hand-carved test patches look organic, human, while the original grooves look systematic, industrial. This simple, physical experiment delivers a profound verdict. Achieving the Longyou pattern with basic hand tools is not just difficult, it is a feat of such consistent precision that it borders on the implausible for a project of that scale. But the experiments did not stop there. Other teams have built and tested simple mechanical aids inspired by the pendulum or drum theories. A weighted beam with multiple cutting heads pulled back and forth across a sandstone block begins to produce a different result. The grooves become more regular, their spacing locks into a rhythm dictated by the tool's fixed geometry, not the artisan's fleeting focus. While these modern replicas are crude approximations, their output is undeniably closer in spirit to the ancient marks. They demonstrate that a basic machine, a guided system, could generate the kind of repetitive, uniform pattern that defines the caves. The speed of removal also tells a story. Hand carving through the volume of Longyou would have been the work of countless lifetimes. Mechanical aids, even simple ones, dramatically increase the rate of progress, making the timeline of the project shift from the mythical to the merely monumental. No single experiment has provided a definitive blueprint for the Longyou tool. What this rigorous, hands-on science does is narrow the field of possibility. It systematically rules out what could not have happened while shining a light on what might have been possible. Each strike of a replicated chisel, each pull of a test apparatus, is a conversation with the past, a way of listening to the constraints and cleverness of those ancient minds. They may not whisper their secrets directly, but through trial and error we are learning to ask better questions. The stone has set the challenge, and now, through painstaking recreation, we are beginning to measure the true height of the solution. Official history offers no names for the builders, but the land itself remembers in whispers. The 11th mystery of Longyou is written not in stone or script, but in the breath of local stories passed from elder to child for countless generations. In the villages around Zhejiang, long before any pump was lowered into a pond, there existed tales of mythical emperors with command over the earth, and of dragon kings dwelling in deep, watery realms beneath the hills. These legends sometimes spoke of great subterranean palaces being carved by these beings, not by human hands, but by magical decree or the power of elemental spirits. To the modern ear, this sounds like pure fantasy, the kind of story told to explain a landscape feature that seemed too grand to be natural. Yet folklore is rarely just invention. It is often the echo of a real event, distorted by time and retelling, but preserving a core of profound truth. When a society witnesses something that defies its everyday understanding, it weaves a story to contain the awe. The inexplicable scale and precision of the Longyou Caves would have been just such a catalyst for myth-making. Imagine a farmer centuries ago, perhaps stumbling upon a partially collapsed entrance, peering into a vast, dark hall held up by pillars like a god's temple. With no concept of ancient engineering, how else would they explain it except as the work of dragons or divine rulers? The oral traditions become a kind of cultural memory, a way for a community to hold onto the fact of the cave's existence even when their origin had faded from written record. These legends grant us a different kind of insight. They tell us that the caves were not completely forgotten. They lived on in the imagination of the people who lived above them. The stories provided a context, a place for the caves within the local worldview, even if that place was in the realm of the supernatural. This transforms the folklore from mere myth into a historical artifact in its own right. It is the emotional and psychological residue of the cave's impact on the human mind across centuries. The tales of dragon kings and underground palaces are not a manual for how the caves were built, but a testament to the sheer, enduring awe they inspired. They confirm that the mystery is not a modern invention. It is an ancient feeling, one that has haunted this landscape for as long as people have told stories beside its silent, submerged doors. The same breath that reveals the past can also erode it. For the Longyou Caves, the moment of their modern discovery began a new and delicate chapter, not of exploration but of preservation. After centuries sealed in a stable, water-logged darkness, the exposed halls now face a silent assault from the air itself. The humidity that visitors bring in, the subtle temperature shifts from lighting systems, even the carbon dioxide from human breath, all create a microscopic environment where change is constant. On the delicate sandstone walls, this can manifest as a fine, powdery efflorescence, a white salt bloom leaching from the stone. In darker corners, patches of algae or fungal growth can take hold, their biological processes slowly degrading the very surface that holds the ancient tool marks. Each visitor's touch, however light, transfers oils and accelerates wear on the pristine grooves. The caves, having survived the grand sweep of millennia, now face attrition from 1,000 tiny, daily pressures. This presents a profound and urgent challenge for the teams tasked with their care. How do you protect a wonder that was never meant to be exposed to the modern world? A conservation strategy is a ballet of environmental control. Dehumidifiers hum quietly to maintain a stable moisture level, while sophisticated air circulation systems work to prevent stagnant, damp pockets from forming. Visitor numbers are carefully managed, and pathways are designed to minimize physical contact with the most sensitive surfaces. In some areas, non-intrusive monitoring devices track temperature and humidity shifts in real time, creating a digital health chart for the stone. This modern struggle echoes the ancient one with a poignant symmetry. Just as the original builders raced against the hardening of their sandstone canvas, today's conservators race against its softening, against the slow fade of history itself. Their work is a testament to a new understanding that preservation is not passive guarding but active stewardship. It is the acknowledgement that this mystery is not a relic to be simply observed, but a fragile inheritance to be passed on. The goal is clear: to stabilize the environment so that the evidence remains intact. This ensures that the next generation of researchers, armed with technologies we have not yet dreamed of, will still have the original, unaltered stone to study. The caves may yet give up their secrets, but only if we can first learn the subtle art of listening without leaving a trace. This single site, if its silent walls are telling the truth, could rewrite chapters of our collective story. The 12th mystery of Longyou is not confined to its stone, but radiates outward to challenge the entire history of science and technology. If the evidence points toward a form of mechanical excavation, then we are looking at more than an architectural anomaly. We are confronting a historical ghost, a peak of engineering knowledge that appears, shines brilliantly, and then vanishes from the record. This concept, known to historians as the loss of technology, is a recurring and humbling theme. It is the story of inventions and techniques that rise to prominence, serve a purpose, and then fade from use, sometimes for centuries, before being rediscovered or reinvented. Consider the sophisticated Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek analog computer for predicting astronomical positions, a device whose complexity would not be matched for over 1,000 years. Or the Roman recipe for concrete, a formula so durable it outlasted the empire itself, only for its secrets to be lost to the Middle Ages. Longyou presents a potential Chinese parallel to these stories, but on a staggering physical scale. It suggests that the journey of human innovation is not a smooth, ever upward climb, but a path with surprising peaks and profound valleys. The idea is not about attributing the work to visitors from other worlds or to a mythical super-civilization. It is about a far more grounded and perhaps more intriguing possibility that our own ancestors, using the materials and physics of their time, achieved a mechanical sophistication that our standard historical narratives have simply overlooked. We tend to view the past through the artifacts that survive, the pottery, the texts, the swords, and the jewelry. But what if a culture's highest technological expression was not in objects meant to last, but in massive, ephemeral machines, devices of wood and bronze and rope that were used until they wore out and returned to the earth? Their legacy would not be the tool, but the work the tool accomplished. Longyou, then, could be the monument to a forgotten industrial revolution, a testament to a society that mastered large-scale mechanics for civil engineering. This forces a dramatic reconsideration. It asks us to look at other ancient megaprojects, from the stone cutting of Petra to the foundations of Tiwanaku, with fresh eyes. Could the signature of lost machines be hidden in plain sight, in the uncanny uniformity of other ancient stone faces around the globe? The implications are vast. If one culture achieved this, it means the capability existed within the human mind of that era. It reshapes our understanding of ancient problem solving, moving it from sheer laborious effort into the realm of systematic, mechanized ingenuity. The caves stand as a silent argument against linear progress, reminding us that knowledge is a fragile flame, sometimes burning bright in one era, only to be sheltered to a faint ember before being kindled anew in another. They challenge us to wonder what other heights of practical genius have been forgotten, waiting not to be found in a tomb, but to be recognized in the shape of the empty spaces they left behind. The cavern floor is cool underfoot, and the air carries a mineral dampness that seems to seep from the stone itself. Stepping into the main hall of Longyou is not like visiting a museum. It is an immersion into a physical question. Your eyes struggle to adjust not just to the dim light, but to the sheer, inhuman scale of the emptiness around you. The walls do not recede, they loom, every surface a tapestry of those countless, whispering grooves that stretch into the shadows above. It feels less like an archaeological site and more like standing inside the gutted hull of a colossal, petrified machine, or within the nave of a cathedral dedicated to an unknown god of industry. The silence here is profound, but it is a heavy, pregnant silence, thick with the echo of your own breath and the unspoken puzzle of the place. You can reach out and run your fingers along the precise 60-degree angles of the tool marks, tracing lines carved by hands you cannot see, guided by minds you cannot know. This tactile connection is transformative. All the theories, the debates about hydraulics and lost machines, collapse from abstract concepts into a direct sensory reality. The mystery is no longer something you read about, it is something you stand inside of. You feel the weight of the mountain above you, and the even greater weight of the centuries of forgotten effort it represents. It evokes a humbling duality, a sense of history that is at once intensely tangible in the stone, and yet completely elusive in its meaning. This experiential power is the core of Longyou's enduring allure. It is a riddle you do not solve with books but with your own presence. The cool air on your skin, the vast shadowed ceiling, the relentless pattern on the walls, they all conspire to make the unknown feel personal. You leave not with an answer, but with the indelible memory of having touched a gap in the world's story, a silent space where the past feels close enough to grasp, yet remains forever just beyond understanding. The final and perhaps most profound mystery of Longyou is the fate of its creators. A society capable of such an undertaking did not simply finish the work and walk away into obscurity. Their disappearance is the silent coda to the entire symphony of stone. What could have happened to them? Historical patterns offer several somber possibilities, each a lesson in the fragility of civilization itself. Perhaps a period of intense conflict or a sudden, overwhelming shift in political power rendered their grand project irrelevant or dangerous, forcing them to abandon their home and their history. Environmental change is another powerful force, with shifts in climate or catastrophic flooding potentially making the region unsustainable, triggering a mass migration where the intricate knowledge of stone carving did not survive the journey. Or consider the nature of the knowledge itself. If the techniques were held by a small, elite guild of master engineers, treated as a state secret of the highest order, that knowledge would have been incredibly vulnerable. The passing of a single generation without proper apprentices, or the fall of the dynasty that protected them, could have severed the chain of transmission forever. The technology, no matter how advanced, would have become a ghost remembered only in myth. There is also the quiet possibility of obsolescence. Perhaps the purpose the caves served, whether ritual, strategic, or industrial, simply vanished from the world's need. When a tool no longer has a use, no matter how brilliant its design, it is eventually set aside and forgotten. The society may have evolved, turning its energies and innovations toward new challenges, leaving their greatest mechanical achievement as a monument to a chapter they themselves closed. This complete silence following such a colossal achievement is what makes Longyou so hauntingly unique. We are accustomed to ruins that speak of decline, of walls that show signs of siege, of cities layered with evidence of conquest and reuse. Longyou shows none of that. It presents a clean break, an absolute cessation, as if the builders finished their final stroke, walked out into the sunlight, and then dissolved into the mists of time, taking every record of their purpose and method with them. This serves as a humbling reminder on a civilizational scale. It underscores that human knowledge is not a permanent pyramid we steadily build, but a flickering flame that requires constant tending. Grand accomplishments, even those carved into the bedrock of a continent, are not immune to being swallowed by the centuries. The caves stand as silent stone witnesses to this truth, a testament not to eternal glory, but to the profound ease with which even the mightiest works can be orphaned by history. Their enduring mystery is a poignant echo of our own impermanence, asking us what of our world might one day puzzle those who come after, and what brilliant chapters of our own story might, through simple neglect or sudden change, vanish without a trace. The stone has posed its riddle, and now our tools must grow sharper to find the reply. The path forward for understanding Longyou is not a single road, but a web of interdisciplinary research, where geologists, acousticians, engineers, and archaeologists combine their sight. The first priority is to anchor this floating mystery in time. More sophisticated geological dating techniques, analyzing the minute layers of calcite or the isotopic signatures within the stone itself, could narrow that broad window from centuries to a specific era, finally tethering the caves to a known historical context. Imagine the power of a definitive date, a single point on the timeline that would allow historians to scan the records of that specific dynasty for any whisper of a project of this magnitude. Simultaneously, the silent acoustics of the halls demand a more precise mapping. Advanced audio scanning could create a three-dimensional sound model of the space, revealing exactly how specific frequencies travel and where focal points of resonance are located. This would tell us if the acoustic properties are a happy byproduct of the architecture, or if they were meticulously engineered, perhaps to amplify a specific ritual instrument or a human voice from a specific speaking stone. The most tantalizing possibility, however, lies in the dark water. Several of the identified caverns remain completely flooded, sealed in their original state. The cautious, minimally invasive exploration of one of these submerged chambers represents the greatest hope for a material clue. While the drained caves were meticulously cleaned, a sealed, waterlocked chamber might have captured a snapshot of the moment work ceased. Within its silt, we could find the irreplaceable, a broken cutting tip made of bronze or hardened stone, a discarded wooden tool handle preserved by the anaerobic conditions, or even fibers from ropes used in the excavation apparatus. On a microscopic level, researchers could scour the famous grooves for residues invisible to the eye, traces of metal alloys from a cutting head, or distinct mineral signatures left by a specific type of abrasive slurry used in a hydraulic cutting process. Beyond the site itself, technology looks downward from the sky. High-resolution satellite imagery and advanced ground-penetrating radar could be used to survey the entire region, not just the known cave cluster, searching for the subtle topographic signatures of more hidden chambers or the ancient pathways used to transport the missing mountain of rubble. Each technological leap gives us a new lens, LiDAR scans that can detect micro-variations in surface elevation, chemical analysis that can identify the source of the missing stone, artificial intelligence that can search for architectural patterns across global databases. All these tools bring us closer to a synthesis. The core questions remain disarmingly simple, yet answering any one would be revolutionary. Can we find a single fragment of the tool? Can we detect the ghost of its motion in a grain of stone? Can we finally map the full, breathtaking extent of this subterranean world? The future of Longyou research is a conversation between the deepest past and the most innovative present, a promise that the next chapter in this ancient story may yet be written, not in stone but in data, finally weaving the disparate threads of scale, silence, and precision into a coherent and astonishing narrative. The silent halls of Longyou have found a voice in the modern world, echoing far beyond their stone walls into documentaries, best-selling books, and countless online discussions. This leap from academic puzzle to global fascination is more than just a curious footnote. It is a vital force that sustains the investigation itself. Public curiosity generates the essential funding and attention that allow new scientific surveys to be commissioned. It draws interdisciplinary experts into the conversation, and it inspires amateur sleuths to examine satellite imagery, sometimes spotting patterns that formal research might miss. This collective engagement transforms the caves from a static archaeological site into a living mystery, one that is continually being re-examined through new lenses. Of course, such widespread attention has its shadows. The void of definitive answers is a vacuum that inevitably attracts sensational claims, from tales of lost super-civilizations to speculative technologies that stretch the evidence. Yet, this very noise serves a purpose. It keeps the conversation alive and vibrant, ensuring that orthodox science cannot simply file the mystery away as unsolvable. The persistent public demand for answers creates a powerful incentive for serious academics to keep looking, to apply ever more refined tools to the stone. Longyou has ascended to become an icon, a shorthand symbol for the profound gaps in our historical narrative. When we speak of ancient anomalies, of technologies that seem out of place, its image is now summoned alongside the pyramids of Giza or the statues of Easter Island. Its story is uniquely compelling because it feels incomplete, a cliffhanger written in stone. The final chapters are not locked away in some dusty archive. They are being composed in real time, through the quiet hum of a laser scanner in the cavern, the spirited debate in a university seminar, and the shared wonder on a forum halfway across the globe. The mystery belongs as much to the public imagination now as it does to the archaeologists, and it is this shared ownership that may ultimately provide the momentum to turn the final page. The Longyou Caves stand as a profound testament, not to what we know, but to what we have yet to understand. Our journey through their 13 core mysteries has led us past walls scored by impossible tools, through halls emptied of all debris and historical memory, and into the resonant silence of a purpose forever out of reach. We have confronted the scale that defies manual labor, the celestial whispers in the architecture, and the ghost of a technology that vanished without a trace. While a single, definitive answer remains locked within the stone, the pursuit itself has reshaped our view of the past. It has revealed a narrative far richer and more complex than any textbook timeline, one where human ambition and ingenuity could reach heights we are only beginning to measure. Perhaps the greatest lesson whispered from these dark halls is a call for humility. History is not a simple, linear story we have fully decoded, but a vast and often fragmented landscape where entire chapters can be swallowed by time. The silent enigma of Longyou reminds us to approach the past with open eyes and an open mind, always prepared for the next discovery that might overturn what we thought we knew. The conversation does not end here. We turn now to you. After exploring the evidence, what do you believe could have carved these incredible halls? Share your own theories and thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's greatest puzzles, please subscribe for more journeys to the edges of our forgotten world.